Hello, I'm here to show you a little bit about this Ultimate Ball. And so you can download this Ultimate Ball from the course module area. And we're just going to open a new scene, or you can also import the Ultimate Ball into an existing scene that you have. Okay, so basically, a little bit about the Ultimate Ball. It is called the Ultimate Ball because it can be many different types of ball shapes, and it's fully textured. So if you select the root object here, the triangle, you can see you can go to ball type and you can choose from the basic ball to a simple ball to a checker ball to a soccer or football and a football 2 and a volleyball, a basketball, tennis ball, golf ball, bowling ball, and a beach ball. There's all these different textures and everything that are built into it, um, and that can be found in the channel box area, so that's very useful. Um, and for the most part, if you decide to use this object, it is going to be something that you're going to need to animate, given this uh, large ring here. And these are your squash and stretch controllers for the top and the bottom of the object. So um, yeah, that was one of the things that I wanted to share with you. Um, the other thing I wanted to share is just a process that you could use while animating. Um, it's called using animation layers. So if you can imagine um, layers of properties for a specific object that could be used at the same time. Um, that's what animation layers are used for. Um, so let me give you an example. Okay, so imagine, here's one timeline for your ball, and maybe we're just using the move controller to translate it from the left to the right. Well, that could be one layer in the animation layer palette. And then while that's occurring, you can have another layer that handles just rotation keys. And then you can have another layer, maybe that just handles squash and stretch. And so the idea then is that, change colors here, you know, these are sandwiched together as time progresses, and out the other end is your completed animation. An advantage of this is that you are sort of compartmentalizing your build out for your animation, and your timeline will only show the keys for that specific layer that you're on. So it also unclutters your timeline. So I'm going to try to demo this for you. It's completely optional, but I think it's a very powerful tool if you can start to think about this as you develop your animation. Um, some tremendous Maya help on this just by typing in animation layers in Maya. The best way that you can do this is just go to the help menu, go to Maya help, and just type in animation layers. And this is a very good explanation of the animation layers. There's a lot to it. You can solo certain layers. It's a bit like Photoshop in that you can have these layers either by themselves, and you can also have them interact with each other, which is a little bit more advanced, more than I'd like to get into at this moment. But you can sort of like have them work together in different ways. For the most part, let me just get rid of that. So if I was going to use an animation layer, there's these different options here. Create layer from selected, create an empty layer, and then there's moving the layers up and down. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and create a keyframe. I got my blue pencil here. I'm just going to delete that. Blue pencil, delete frames. So this guy, I'm just going to go ahead and create a keyframe, and I'm just going to move him to the right and create another keyframe. So here we have our translation across the scene there on X. And so I can go ahead and create a layer from selected. Now I have this helper object selected. And so, okay, so I created that initial layer from selected, and what it did is it created a new animation layer, but my animation is currently on this base animation layer because there's a green dot indicating that there's frames here, and this has no animation here. So what I want to do is I want to move the animation keyframes up into its own layer. So I'm going to go extract selected objects, and now this is an extracted layer. It has brought the keyframes from the base animation layer up to the extracted version. I'm going to rename that move. And when I click on it here, I'm looking at my timeline. There's nothing here. Basically, I want to keep the base animation layer locked. I don't want to be adding keys to that. And I only want to be working within this area where we're breaking things down. So we got our movement, and now we have a new layer called animation layer 1. I'm just going to call this rotate, and what I want to do is I want to set this to be the active layer, and I'm going to select this same ring, and this time I'm going to set a key, and this time it's going to be for rotation. So I'm going to go E, and then I'm just going to rotate this 180 degrees, or as close as I can get it. And then I'm going to hit set key again, S. So now we got our rotation and our movement. So just back to this, you can see that the frames are in the exact same spot. When I click back and forth, you really can't see that there's a difference. But when I mute or solo one of these layers, if I click this button, only solo it, solo the layer, it'll only show the movement. When I solo the rotation, it'll just show rotation for that object. When I allow them to be as is, they'll work together. So you can work like this. We can create a new layer, maybe call it squash. Okay, so I have this layer called squash, and you'll notice when I click on it I get no green circles, and when I click on this helper object it doesn't select, or it does not give us any green dots or anything. So what we have to do is we have to add this object to this layer. So the way you do that is you right click the layer and you add selected objects. Now you get a green dot, and that means you can add keyframes to that layer. So I'm going to go ahead and hit S for set key, and I'm going to hit S again, and maybe I do like a little push down. And maybe when we get to this point, do a squash set key. Go to our move. Go to our move and I went to my move layer, I hit S to set a key at 20 because I relocated the object down, and then I'm going to go to squash again, click on this layer up here, and then I might actually go one frame over, hit S, so that's extremely fast. Just going to hold down shift, maybe this needs to be a little bit more extreme. Here I think might need to just make this a little bit more obvious. Now here I don't like how this starts squash, so I'm just going to move this. I'm going to shift select and relocate these. Maybe right before this, because right into this tumble I'm starting to be squashed, so I think I have to So it's sort of just like a kind of a fun, like, anticipation squish, and then ta-da! At the end.